bulk of a bill that passed 10 days ago and get down to the business of addressing middle-class families' needs and young people's needs to help solve the problems of this country and give them the opportunity to succeed. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume to say, I actually had this conversation with some school children in my district over the break, because I'm sure everybody in this body did. They call it a break, Mr. Speaker. The truth is, it's a district work period. You're working every bit as hard down in your home state as you are here, probably harder back home. And I'm talking to young people, and I said, does anybody here have a parent that just lets them eat anything they want to, drink all the soda they want, eat all the candy they want? There wasn't a single hand that went up. Apparently, parents had some discipline incorporated in the lives of each one of these children. I asked, who thinks their parents love them? And the answer was every child in that room felt loved by their parents. They didn't get everything they wanted all the time. There were limits to it, but they felt loved. Mr. Speaker, we're in the business of spending other people's money. Other people's money. It's not my money. It's not my colleague from Florida's money. It is other people's money in this body. And not only are we spending every penny of the money that they send us, Mr. Speaker, we are borrowing even more. You think about it. We talk about how we borrow 40 cents out of every dollar that we spend. What that means then is, Mr. Speaker, we collect every penny that America is willing to give us, and we borrow 66% more. 66% more. Communities back home aren't operating under that kind of funny mathematics. They understand they can only spend the money that they have. Families back home aren't operating under those kind of funny mathematics. Only here. So in the case of these programs, again, student loans are in absolutely no way at issue in the underlying bill, are in absolutely no way at issue in this rule. But just to touch on that topic for a moment, and we had the Speaker of this House come down and give a passionate plea for votes in support of the very provision that's being discussed here today. Not only did he speak on behalf of those provisions, this chamber passed it. We talk about the ticking time bomb. That's the ticking time bomb of inaction in the Senate. This body has acted. Now, what did we do? I happen to be one of those folks who took out student loans, Mr. Speaker, so I know a little bit about the student loan process. Now, I happen to take mine out from a private institution. We were using competition to keep the marketplace regulated in those days. Now the federal government's the only place you can go for a student loan. That was courtesy of my friends on the other side of the aisle. Again, heartfelt, believed in their heart that it was going to be a better program if only the federal government ran it, instead of letting private financial institutions who lend money for a living manage it. But 6.8% is the below-market rate that's available for folks who borrow Stafford loan money. You may have had a Stafford loan, Mr. Speaker. Other folks out here might have had a Stafford loan. But there are two kinds of Stafford loans. There's the Stafford loan that you pay interest on after you've borrowed the money. Imagine that. You borrow the money, you pay interest on it. And then there's the Stafford loan that's called the subsidized Stafford loan. That's a much smaller piece of the pie, Mr. Speaker. You know, we have the loans that families have to go out and get on their own to help pay for their children's education. We have savings that folks are going out and spending on the children's education. We have grant programs that are scholarship programs, all that are out there to help with education. We have the PLUS program out there, which is a loan that parents and students can take out together. And then we have, in addition to all those programs, we have the Stafford loans, which again, some of them are loans you pay interest on immediately, and some of them, the very small fraction of them, are loans that are subsidized while you're in school. This conversation we're having here today is about whether or not this subsidized Stafford loan that was over 7% when I borrowed it is 6.8% in normal times, but the rate was reduced to 3.4% by my colleagues, whether or not that rate should be allowed to return to normal levels. Now again, and I say to folks, there's no money that's coming out of anybody's pocket in this room. This is America's money. America's money that we're borrowing, that we're spending. If we want to borrow that money to cut artificially low rates in half, make them artificially lower, we absolutely can. Not only can we did. We talk about this as if it's something that might happen one day. We did it. It was 2 weeks ago. I was down here on the House floor. I sat right over there, in fact. Sat right over there. I remember the vote happening. It's done here. Did we pay for it, Mr. Speaker? We did. We paid for it with a program. I would categorize it as a slush fund. It's a $15 billion program that exists over there in the Health and Human Services Department. It came out of the Affordable Care Act. The President looked at it and said, you know what, that really was too much of a slush fund. He cut it by almost a third. And now we said, you know what, perhaps we should go after the rest of it, because, you know, accountability is an issue here, Mr. Speaker. We hear folks talk about prevention and cancer and women and children. I wish that's where the money went. I went and got the list of where those projects are, Mr. Speaker. You know, in my part of the world, it was a $2.5 million grant to the county I grew up in to help with obesity training in schools. Obesity training. I'm in favor of that. I think we ought to absolutely work on obesity. I hope my home school district's already working on those issues. In other parts of the country, New York, for example, this is money that went to lobby in favor of soda taxes. That's right. This money that is being described by my friends on the other side of the aisle as critical to protecting the health of women so that they can get breast cancer screenings was spent in New York City to lobby in favor of job-killing taxes for my home state of Georgia. This is not about women and children, Mr. Speaker. This is about unaccountability when you start handing out slush funds to bureaucrats. In Philadelphia, it was to lobby against cigarettes. Is that something we ought to do? Well, golly, we can go out and do that on our own every day. Does the federal government need to borrow from our children and our grandchildren to help Philadelphia lobby against cigarette taxes? In California, it's going to put up signs so folks can find the local parks. In the name of obesity training, Mr. Speaker, in the name of obesity training, going to find the local parks. Do we need signs to help us find the local parks? We have them in our community. I thought they had them in other communities. Do I need to borrow from my children and my grandchildren to put up more signs for parks? Mr. Speaker, we don't. This is not a priority that the American people stood up and voted for. This is a slush fund that is used by bureaucrats to focus on whatever their priority of the day is. And what's so disappointing is that this responsible government, endorsed by a vote of this full House, is being described by my colleagues as an assault on women's health. It is offensive to me. There are so many things that we legitimately disagree about. Go back to where I began, Mr. Speaker. We disagree from the heart about so many directions in this country, but there is not one person in this body, not one, that wants to put women's health at risk. Not one. This is about responsible government and cutting out the waste, cutting out the low-priority spending, cutting out the dollars that come from taxpayers' pockets in my district to spend for job-killing legislation in New York. Mr. Speaker, we're going to have a full debate on this. Full debate. Every member of this body will be able to bring their voice to the floor. I look forward to that full debate. I believe in this country. I believe in this institution. I believe that full debate is going to take us exactly where we need to be, and with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to yield to my very good friend, Mr. Turney, from Massachusetts, 2 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the Speaker, thank the gentleman for acknowledging this. You know, Americans need to know that their family members are going to be able to afford a college degree, whether it's a 2-year degree or a 4-year degree. Too many people are afraid that their child is not going to be able to get through college. Too many students don't think they can meet the cost of it. And that's what we need to deal with. Public dollars for schools, Pell Grants, lower interest rates, work-study. Those are things that we've done together to allow people to have the opportunity of college so that everybody can try to achieve their goal, have an equal opportunity to achieve those goals with things we've done together in the past. We've been helping businesses find very educated and skilled people to drive our economy. It doesn't matter if you earn $20,000, $30,000, $60,000, or if you're suddenly unemployed because you lost a job. It feels the same if your kids are pushed out of school, if they can't afford to pay for it. Getting a degree really makes a difference for many people whether or not they're going to be able to get a good job. And helping them do that is something we've all decided to invest in. You know, carrying a huge loan debt It may mean that you have to delay starting a family, delay buying a house, taking a job that you otherwise wouldn't take. Pell Grants, work study, lower interest rates, all of those things for higher education are one of the opportunities that we all help to create. So the people that have long been benefiting from special favors, from tax loopholes, the corporations, the people that are extremely wealthy, they need to do their part. And that's simply what we're asking them to do. We can keep this country moving forward if we invest in our future. What we want to do is find a way and make a time that those that have benefited so extraordinarily realize that they too have to step up to the plate and join the rest of us to help pay for those opportunities, to make sure that we can move forward. This is a good time to invest in America and Americans. You know, we have 250 tax expenditures in the tax code. Those are special interest rates, special tax rates rather, special favors, credits, deductions. Our friends on the other side of the aisle apparently think that's what America should borrow for, that that's what they should borrow for and pay corporations that made $130 billion last year to give them more money, instead of helping people get through college and get a degree that they need to get a good job.
An additional minute.
So, you know, I filed a bill last week that would have lowered the interest rates back in a time when the Republican budget would have let it double, back when the Speaker and the Chairman of the Education Committee and the second-ranking member of the Republican Party all voted to keep it at 6.8%. Filed a bill, and I found a way to pay for it. It was taking one tax credit from Big Oil that made $130 billion last year, one tax credit that they weren't originally intended to even benefit from, but had managed to sort of squeak their way into eventually, and said there's a way to pay for it. Now, if you didn't agree with it, the Republicans didn't agree with it, then they could have found one that wasn't noxious, one that everybody could have agreed on, but instead they finally came around to deciding that they wanted to lower the interest rates because they couldn't take the political heat when the President was out there talking to American families and American parents and American students said, what are you doing? Why are you borrowing and giving oil companies $130 billion of profits plus tax credits when we could be having a way to make sure that our family members get the education they need to get a job and move forward in their lives? And so the Republicans finally came along and said, okay, we'll lower the interest rates. We can't take the heat, but we're going to find a poison pill. We're going to look at what the President has planned to do with preventive funds, which are screenings for breast cancer, screenings for cervical cancer, immunizations for children, and we'll use that. I suggest to my friends on the other side, stop waiting for the Senate. Use some leadership. Come across the aisle and look at those 250 tax expenditures with us. Let's find one we can agree on. Not wait for the Senate and not blame it on them. Let's move forward on that. Stop being so partisan and stop being so ideological, and let's move forward. I thank the Speaker.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 30 seconds to say to my friend from Massachusetts that there's only one bill in this institution that abolishes not just the oil company tax credits that he wants to go after, not just all the corporate welfare that he wants to go after, not just all the benefits and exclusions and exemptions that the wealthy in this country utilize to lower their tax bills. There's one bill in this Congress that abolishes every single special exemption, deduction, carve-out, and giveaway in the entire United States tax code. It's H.R. 25. I am the sponsor of that legislation. I join you in your desire to eliminate all those special interest tax breaks and deduction. I welcome your co-sponsorship of that legislation.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
I would inform my colleague that I'm the last speaker. I don't know whether you are, but I'm prepared to close if you are.
As am I. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself the balance of the time, and I ask unanimous consent to insert the text of my amendment in the record along with extraneous material immediately prior to the vote on the previous question.
Objection.
Mr. Speaker, the majority tried once, 2 weeks ago, to go back on what they agreed to. It did not work. So now here we are again trying to redeem ourselves. But this is no way to run an economy, no way to run a budget process, and no way to stick up for the millions of struggling Americans who need us to focus on improving the economy. We can pretend that the Ryan budget has passed when in fact it has not. We can deem it come here to redeem it. But while we are living in legislative fantasy land, millions of other Americans will still be struggling to find jobs, to pay off their student loans, to access affordable health care and decent housing, and really in the final analysis just to survive in an economy that not just this year or last, in an economy not just in the last decade or the decade before, in an economy that favors those who have the most rather than look out for those who have the least. The celebrated cartoon that carries Wile E. Coyote used to pretend that there was going to be some kind of rubberized format when he landed off a cliff, only to find that soon after that he was in a very long and painful fall to the bottom. I've said before and I repeat, we are better people than what's happening here. I agree with my friend Mr. Woodall that we see things differently, and in our heart of hearts, both of us and many of the members of this body are in agreement and want things to be better. As long as Republicans insist on replacing substantive debate with partisan gimmicks, broken promises, and misplaced priorities, the fall to the bottom is going to seem very long and is likely to be very painful for millions of Americans. I would urge my colleagues to oppose this rule for the reason that it is deeming something that is being pretended to be passed. I'd ask them to oppose this rule for the reason that it includes in it martial law that disallows the open discussion that my colleague rightly points to in an open rule, but this particular provision disallows that as it pertains to the reconciliation, and that is just no way for us to go about trying to come to terms with the enormous consequences and circumstances that we face by not having faced them many, many, many years ago. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman has yielded back his time. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague from Florida for joining me down here for this debate today. And there really are some things that we disagree about here in this body at large. But one thing we don't disagree about is the importance of bringing open rules to this floor to debate appropriations bills. You know, this appropriations bill that we're bringing under this rule, Mr. Speaker, is a 1% reduction from the levels the President has proposed. As we hear folks talk about the doom and the gloom and the kicking of children and the punishing of women, 1%. Oh, there's a long, hard fall to the bottom coming, all right. And it's coming in the American economy. And I'll tell you who gets hurt the most in a bad economy. It's the poorest and the weakest among us. We all know it. We all know it. We're asking for 1% less than what the President proposed in the name of taking a small step in the right direction. You could have gotten me for 20 or 25% less. I mean, just to be fair, to be clear, you could have gotten me on board if we'd gone 20 or 25% less, but this body is trying to move in a responsible fashion. There's only one budget that's passed in this town, Mr. Speaker. President's budget didn't pass. It got 0 votes last year in the Senate, got 0 votes this year in the House. Didn't even get introduced last year in the House. There's only one budget in this town that has passed. That's the one that came out of the open process that we had right here. We could take our toys and go home, or we could try to do our appropriations bills under the one proposal that has garnered a majority vote in this entire nation. I vote for the latter. And a vote for this rule is a vote for the latter. Let's go ahead and start that process. Let's go ahead and do for the American people what we promised them we would do, and that is operate this institution so that everybody has a voice. And at the end of the day, we move our very best legislation forward. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time, and I move the previous question on the resolution.
Question on the order in the previous question on the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for the
Gentleman
yeas
from Florida.
and nays. I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. The members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 and Clause 9 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on ordering the previous question will be followed by 5-minute votes on adoption of the House Resolution 643, if ordered, and an approval of the journal by the yeas and nays. This is a 15-minute vote.
The House is underway with what's likely to be a couple of days of debate on the fiscal year 2013 spending bill for the Departments of Commerce and Justice as well as science programs, including NASA. This is the previous question vote. The rule would provide for an hour of general debate and unlimited amendments, so expect a couple of days of debate. Also, the bill itself providing $51 billion in spending, discretionary spending. That's a 3% decrease from this year, from 2012 spending, and 2% less than the President wanted. You may have heard in some of the discussion in the debate on the rule, Democrats in particular bringing up the student loan rate, which is scheduled to rise, the student loan rates from 3.4 to 6.8%. By the end of June if Congress doesn't act. Well, today in the Senate they failed to get the 60 votes needed to move forward with that bill to keep student loan rates at 3.4%. The vote there was 52 to 45. Republicans say they support heading off higher rates on the Stafford loans, but they oppose how the Democrats would pay for that measure. They would pay for it by raising payroll taxes on high-earning stockholders of some privately held corporations. Republicans, meanwhile, in the Senate would pay for the bill by abolishing a health care fund that was part of the 2010 health care law. Again, that vote in the Senate, 52 to 45. They needed 60 to move forward. During this first vote, this 15-minute vote, we're going to bring you a discussion from this morning's Washington Journal on the role of lobbyists in Washington.
Howard Marlowe is the president of the American League of Lobbyists and is here to talk to us about the role of federal lobbyists, and he's going to talk to us about federal lobbying, legislation that impacts the industry and changes the industry itself, is proposing that would alter law that governs those engaged in lobbying Congress and senior officials in the executive branch. Welcome to the program.
Thanks very much, Rob. Good to be here.
In an article that we grabbed from the New York Times, you called lobbying tainted. What words do you hope to that lobbyists will pick up to sort of untaint the lobbying industry?
The two words that are particularly important to us, and that's transparency and accountability. People need to know who we are and what it is that we're doing. So in terms of, I'm a registered lobbyist. We've got about 12,000 registered lobbyists. When I register, what happens is that I fill out a form that tells people who I work for, what I'm working for them on, and how much I'm being paid. And folks can begin to hold me accountable. It's on the web. It's something that is, you know, there for everybody to see. There are several thousand lobbyists who are not registered. The law has loopholes. But nevertheless, to me, it's important that folks understand what it is that we do.
So tell us, what does a lobbyist do?
We're advocates. We help people convey messages. There are all sorts. Everybody that is listening to us has a lobbyist. Journalists have lobbyists. Clergymen have lobbyists. Nonprofits have lobbyists. Business people have lobbyists. We span the spectrum in terms of what it is that we represent, and we try to help people get their message across to the right people at the right time in the most effective manner possible so that they and their views can affect policy.
So what's the difference between a lobbyist calling up an office here on Capitol Hill and saying, I want to talk to the congressman, and an individual calling up? Say a lobbyist from the cattle industry calls and says, I want to talk to my congressman, I want to express some views, and then a rancher, an independent cattleman, calls up and makes the same request. What's going to be the difference between those two calls, and which call gets taken more seriously?
They both get taken seriously, because if I'm a rancher and I'm calling my congressman, I'm a constituent, I'm a voter, and therefore that makes me extremely important. If I want to have somebody following up after I make that call and saying, well, here's what Rancher X has to say in terms of legislation that's coming before you, here's what he or she is looking for, that makes a lot of difference. Also, it isn't so much just that member of Congress. It's the people who are making the decisions who may very well be somebody other. It's likely to be somebody other than their member of Congress. So, when and how do you get that message across, and to whom?
Now, you talk about registered lobbyists versus unregistered lobbyists. Why is it important in your mind that lobbyists be registered?
Transparency and accountability. I want to see all of the people who are not registered lobbyists become registered lobbyists. And the reason they're not is a giant loophole in the law, which says that unless you spend so much of your time, 20% of your time in a calendar quarter, that you don't need to register. Well, there are lots of people who spend less than 20%, but who are paid to advocate. I am a lobbyist with my own business, and we are hired to lobby. People don't hire us to sit around and just think great thoughts, or even to have conversations without feeling that we are going to influence somebody. And so therefore, I should be registered. Other people, and people always focus on the big names. Newt Gingrich said he wasn't a lobbyist when he actually made contacts. But he didn't have to register because the law had a loophole. There are others out there, but it isn't so much the big names that I'm worried about, because you folks in the media catch those folks pretty well. It's the other folks who are, just, common, ordinary, day-to-day folks who are going up to the Hill, having contacts, but they're in a way that's done that doesn't have to have them register. We've come up with proposals in the American League of Lobbyists that will change that.
And in the interest of full disclosure, the example that I used for cattle was just something that came off the top of my head. You, in fact, do not represent any cattle interest, do you?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Not at all.
As we mentioned, Howard Marlowe is the president of the American League of Lobbyists, and you can find out more about their organization on their website, alldc.org, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. If you want to get involved in the conversation, our numbers are 202-0001 for Democrats, 202-737-0002 for Republicans, and 202-628-0205 for independents. Our first call for Howard Marlowe comes from Fort Myers, Florida. Richard on our line for Republicans. Richard, you're on the Washington Journal.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Marlowe. I finished Jack Abramoff's book, maybe one of the lesser of your honorable people. And he's suggesting that the lobbying process is perverting the political system. He asks the question kind of rhetorically whether or not a campaign contribution is significantly different from a bribe.
Well, it's a critical question. Mr. Abramoff, who is a person who never let the facts get in his way while they claim to be a lobbyist and use money, is therefore suggesting that money ought to be eliminated from the process. Members of Congress need money in order to get reelected, and I think campaign finance is an issue that needs to be attacked. But lobbyists are using facts, and if they don't have the facts, then they're not going to be listened to. There are issues of money that need to be dealt with, as I said, but I think that you have to understand that if he bribed members of Congress, he went to jail. That's exactly what would happen to anybody else. It's illegal, and what he's talking about is something which, again, if it happens, if there's another Jack Abramoff, and I surely hope that there isn't, then they're going to find themselves in jail.
Next up is Petersburg, Virginia. Bob on our line for Independence. Bob, you're on the Washington Journal.
Well, good morning.
Good morning,
Mr.
Bob.
Marlowe, you know, I kind of think that y'all are like money launderers. You know, y'all, I'm going to give you a few examples here. I mean, these big corporations like the oil companies, the taxpayers, you know, foot billions or millions of dollars for them. They give it to them, and they certainly don't need it, but then they turn around and spend all that right back on lobbying, which goes right back in the pockets of the congressmen and the senators. I think they rigged it up to get the taxpayers' money back in their pockets like that. I really think y'all are criminals, and I hope that sooner or later here that your people get strong enough to make your lobbying illegal, because it's destroying the process, the political process in this country. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Howard Marlowe.
What's distorting, basically what lobbyists are getting blamed for what people think are bad policies. We're also getting blamed for the fact that there's a dysfunction going on and in Congress, and people are annoyed. The economy's bad. Easy to take it out on lobbyists. We do not have the vote. Your member of Congress has the vote. You either decide that you're going to keep that member for his or her votes, or you're going to get rid of them. I'm not a criminal. I'm doing what anybody's First Amendment right is. I'm trying to help your First Amendment right to petition your government. And if that's criminal, then we're in the wrong country.
We want to show our viewers the list of lobbyist recommendations, the American League of Lobbyists recommendations. The first is lowering the registration threshold, eliminating exemptions, apply restrictions to all citizens, not just lobbyists, harmonize reporting, shorten a registration period, mandatory ethics training, enforcement, improve congressional oversight, define lobbyists, and work with Congress on campaign finance laws. With regard to lobbyists, a lot of people have the impression that lobbyists are these guys that walk in with a lot of money to pass around. They take the congressman out to lunch or dinner and bend their ear on a particular issue. Talk to us a little bit about how you, Howard Marlowe, work as a lobbyist. And is all of that true, some of it true, none of it true?
Well, basically, the general tone of it is not true. When I get a client, we sit down in our firm and we talk with them about what their needs are, and what we're looking for is a really valid need that they have. Most lobbyists are not going to get involved in things that they're not going to believe in. And once we do that, we help them set their priorities, set the message, and then we have a partnership. But now in terms of what it is that I do during the day, I'm going to be on the phone, doing emails up on the Hill, and be talking primarily with congressional staff people, to tell you the truth, because most of the time that we get is with staff people. I'm going to bring in my fact sheets. I'm going to tell them what was important. And then following me, they're going to hear from my client in one way or another. If I have we'll go back to the cattlemen. If I get ranchers to put in the calls, then, let's do it. But it's very open. We can't carry any money, and we can't do any bribing. Carrying money and giving it to a member of Congress, whether it's cold cash or a check, is very illegal. Those are things that are just not involved. We have things to do which are basically sitting there across the table from folks like you and saying, okay, here's what we're looking for, here's what we need, here's why we need it. And if there are any disadvantages to doing that for that member, we have to tell them what those disadvantages are. It's very simple, and I'm happy to have you walk, or anybody else who's listening, walk along with me and see what I'm doing. Because they'll find out that it's one that involves work. People hire me or other lobbyists for our knowledge, as well as for our knowledge of the process and our knowledge of people. If we don't have both, and if we don't have a good reputation, then we're gone.
Howard Marlowe, as we said, president of the American League of Lobbyists and president of Marlowe & Company, a Washington, D.C. lobbying firm established in 1984. He has over 30 years of experience as a lobbyist working with Congress and the executive branch. Back to the phones, New York, New York. Lionel on our line for Democrats. You're on the Washington Journal.
Hi, how are you doing, Howard?
Fine. How are you this morning?
Hi, I just want to tell you how biased lobbyists are, because you're stealing taxpayers' money
Let's move on to Barbara on our line for Republicans in Hawaii, calling us from Oahu this morning. Go ahead, Barbara. I think we've lost Barbara. How about Orangeburg, South Carolina? Sam on our line for Independence. Sam, you're on the Washington Journal.
Thank you. I'd like to make one comment. I feel that lobbyists are the problem with the process.
Why is that, Sam?
The problem is that we have lobbyists who are skewing the actual numbers. They're skewing the numbers in favor of whatever process that they're trying to promote. That is the problem with the political process. They may skew the numbers to favor one thing that I'm against, but I have nobody there to lobby for me. Most of these senators have paid staff to find out facts. That's what they're there for. We don't need those lobbyists up there, and that's my comment. I thank you very much.
Sam, stay with me for a second. Can you give me a specific example or issue of something that you feel has been skewed by a lobbyist, or that you were not able to get across to your member of Congress because of being impeded by lobbyists?
Yes, the oil pipeline.
The Keystone Pipeline?
Yes.
And how did lobbyists keep you from getting your point across to the person who represents you in Orangeburg, South Carolina?
Well, my problem is that the pipeline flows through so many different watershed tables and through different places that are environmentally protected, that no one should ever be able to allow a possible spill in those areas. But that's something that we're just willing to give up now. And I haven't seen any person or anyone that votes for that who wasn't from one of those oil-producing states, Texas, Wyoming, Ohio, wherever.
Sam in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Howard Marlowe, president of the American League of Lobbyists, is it conceivable that there are lobbyists on both sides of this issue, and why is it that in Sam's opinion, one side seems to be getting a better deal than the other side?
Well, Sam favors one side rather than the other side. Believe me, they're very effective organizations, Nature Conservancy, National Resources Defense Council, a bunch of folks who are very effective at lobbying and have a lot of grassroots lobbying base and are able to get their point across. If this were an easy issue, non-controversial, it would be non-controversial because there was really no effective lobbying going on both sides of the issue. So we're not skewing the process. We're basically trying to do what we can on both sides of that issue to get what we think are the facts.
Next up is John in Alpena, Michigan, on our line for Democrats. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, hi. I have a question for the lobbyist, because he's been working in Congress for the last 30 years. I figured he'd probably know more of why there's a, well, first of all, there's a Gallup poll that has marijuana legalization at 52% support among the American people. Here in Michigan, we have medical marijuana law. We passed 4 years ago, and we're circulating a petition to end marijuana prohibition in Michigan. And I was wondering, if he can gauge the support more than I would in Congress, why is there such a disconnect between what the American people want with legalization of marijuana and, like, if it's at 52%, you'd expect to, like, see more than just, like, Barney Frank and Ron Paul and all these, just a couple people introducing this legislation.
All right, John, we're going to leave it there.
You know, there's a lot of reasons for this, but people tend to think that the system is broken when, in fact, they haven't used it. Your voice is extremely important. Those people who signed that petition, people who are reflected in whatever poll was taken, those people need to take their responsibility first. There is a lobby for legalization of marijuana. You can help them out if that's your position by making sure that you've expressed your voice to the members of Congress that represent you. I mean, it sounds, you know, like you learned it in school, but you've forgotten it. Folks have to remember that they have to exercise their rights It is our responsibility to do that. And if it sounds preachy, it's not. It's really a case of you've got to make sure that you're speaking out. It's not lobbyists, of course, who are affecting that issue. That's a hot-button issue. And but you know, as you say, in your state, you got legalized medical marijuana. If it happened in Ohio, it can happen in Washington D.C. too.
Not necessarily this issue, but are there issues that people bring to your office that you say, no, this is too hot, we don't want to get involved in it, or is it your philosophical opposition to an issue? Is it you know, they come to you and say, yeah, you know, we like the personally we like the issue, but on the Hill right now that thing is too hot to touch, we're not going to go anywhere near it?
Well, two things you raised, Rob. One is you know, am I going to work on something that I don't believe in, whether it's philosophical or something that I just find that I can't believe in? My approach to it is no, and you know, I'm not going to do that. Second of all, if I need to tell a client or a prospective client if something is not going to be doable, I need to tell them that. I'm not going to earn money for coming up with an empty result. Folks hire lobbyists based on our reputation and what results that we have. And if I'm going to come up with a goose egg, I don't want to mislead them and say, spend your time, spend your money, hire me, and then a year from now come back and do it again. I've got to give them the realistic prospects for what can happen.
We're talking about the role of federal lobbyists with Howard Marlowe. He is the president of the American League of Lobbyists. And our next call comes from Mike on our line for Republicans. This morning calling from Houston, Texas. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you for coming online this morning. I know that's pretty brave of you to actually walk into this area and then take questions. Look, I guess the issue that we face as taxpayers is that you made the specific comment a second ago whenever you said, I will not take people's money if I don't believe in it. The problem is that you take money from the American taxpayers because you were the person in between us and politicians. You stand in between us and a voice. You have to be the voice of all of us, but only if we have enough money to put in your pocket. And you cannot sit here and tell me that you don't put money in politicians' pockets whenever you hire these people. As soon as they come out of office, you put them to work. They work for you. They go back right into this Washington grind, and they do the same thing that you do every day, which should be against the law. You stand in between us and resolution and resolve and anything that we would like to accomplish.
Mike in Houston, Texas. Howard Marlowe.
I don't stand in between anything. Lobbyists stand there to give a louder voice to folks who've got opinions like you do. Basically, and you've raised another issue also, the revolving door. Our proposals that we did in the American League of Lobbyists hit a number of things. We didn't hit the revolving door. There are already laws that limit for 2 years. Members of Congress can't, after they're now former members of Congress, they can't go and lobby their former colleagues. I'd like to see that issue tackled more. It's something that needs to be done in terms of congressional staff. But on the other hand, we're not standing in between anyone. I'm there to try to help you, whatever interest you are interested in, to give it a louder voice. It's not something that is anything more than a extra staff. We view it when we help clients out. Let's take a nonprofit that we have in California. They represent, they do programs for children who need after-school tutoring in order to, advance themselves. Well, I'm there to make sure that not only their congressman who knows that program extremely well, I'm there to make sure that other members of Congress know how effective that kind of program is, and to try to see if we can have more money put in, not just to that particular program, but to that kind of after-school tutoring. I don't see how that's standing in the way of anybody.
Apparently, a lot of folks think that being a lobbyist can be very profitable. Donna816 sends us this tweet and wants to know, do you think that young people in Congress now are just using that as a stepping stone to lobbyist jobs, making mega dollar signs?
Well, after they see this program, they may not be exactly ready to do that. Yeah, I think that there's some who do. you know, when I was here and I worked on Congress, and it was in the last century, and we did, you know, I was the exception to the rule. I stayed in Washington. Most of the folks went home. It's now come to the point where a lot of the folks from the Hill use lobbying as their next stepping stone. The issue is, are they qualified? I don't hire anybody just because they came from the Hill. I don't hire them because they just work for somebody who's particularly important. I hire them because they know they have the ability to know issues. They have expertise. So, you know, it's an issue of how you treat folks, and different lobbyists treat them in different ways.
We've got an article here from Roll Call saying Quigley seeks greater transparency from lobbyists. Representative Mike Quigley just might be K Street's least favorite member of Congress this week. That's because the Illinois Democrat introduced a bill Thursday that would force lobbyists to disclose a lot more information about their Hill activities. He says, we want to lift the top off the dome so people can see what's happening. Quigley's Lobbyist Disclosure Enhancement Act would require lobbyists to report which member offices they meet with, and would do away with the 20% threshold, which currently allows advocates who spend less than 20% of their time on lobbying to avoid registering as lobbyists. Quigley's bill would also require lobbyists to register new clients within 5 days as opposed to 45 days. What's the status of this bill, sir?
It has one co-sponsor, and it's been sitting there, but I think it's a very good bill to look at. I don't agree with all the things that are in there, but what I do agree with is the fact that, again, we need to have more transparency. He wants to get rid of the 20% loophole. I want to get rid of the 20% loophole. He wants to make sure that
Just a reminder, you can see all of today's Washington Journal online in our video library at cspan.org. The House is wrapping up the first of 3 votes, previous question vote. They've been debating today the rule for the 2013 fiscal year spending bill for Commerce and Justice Departments as well as science programs, including NASA. The rule allows for an hour of general debate and unlimited amendments. That rule vote is next.
On this vote, the yeas are 235 and the nays are 174. The previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, vote no.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
Hearing of the chair.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on that, I ask for a recorded vote.
Gentleman from Flores requested a recorded vote. All those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote no. The members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And this is the rule vote for the 2013 spending bill for the Departments of Commerce and Justice and for science programs. It's a 5-minute vote. Also this afternoon on Capitol Hill, a conference committee will meet to consider the surface transportation measure. We'll have live coverage this afternoon at 3. A preview here from a Capitol Hill reporter. Nearly 50 lawmakers meet today in their first official conference meeting to resolve differences on a surface transportation bill. Nathan Hurst with Congressional Quarterly. What are some of the key differences that lawmakers will have to resolve?
Well, the largest issue set before the lawmakers on the Conference Committee is certainly the House-passed provision streamlining the approval of the controversial Keystone XL oil pipeline from Canada to Texas. That was a provision that the House Republicans insisted that they wanted to be part of the Conference Committee, and Senate Democrats have said that's a non-starter for them. So that's really the big issue that people are watching. But there's a number of other issues, too, related to truck safety. The Senate Democrats are looking for a provision that would require cargo truck drivers to install black box type recorders in their big rigs, and House Republicans are wary of that. There's also the matter of how to pay for the bill. Right now there is a list of offsets that Senate Finance Chairman Max Baucus has identified, but a number of Republicans aren't that comfortable with some of the pay for, so that's going to be a big issue in the conference as well.
Back to Keystone for a second. What is the Obama administration position on the pipeline?
Well, the Obama administration has said from the outset when the Republicans passed their shell bill to go to conference with the Senate that they had no interest in signing this, and that they actually issued a veto warning on the House's measure. So that makes things quite complicated as far as trying to get a Keystone deal brokered on the Hill that would be acceptable for the White House. Complicating the issue last week was the pipeline developer TransCanada said that it was going to go ahead and reapply for the same permit that had been denied earlier by the Obama administration. Now, of course, President Obama told the company that they were more than welcome to reapply if they wanted to. So Democrats think that may give them a little bit of leverage since the company is playing ball by the president's rules.
You talked about some of the policy differences. What about the structural differences between the House bill and the Senate bill? Are there different lengths, different dollar figures?
Well, first you have to keep in mind that the Senate was the only of the two chambers that actually passed its bill. They passed a 2-year, $109 billion measure that basically it keeps the funding levels for roads, for state road projects, at about the same where they are now. The House tried to push a 5-year, $260 billion bill, the length of which was certainly preferred by states and municipalities that actually do road building. They like that certainty of a longer bill. But the GOP in the House was never able to muster up enough votes to actually pass it. So they're not going to be able to take that language to conference, though a number of the high-ranking GOP members, like John Mica, the Florida Republican who chairs the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, has said that they're going to go back to H.R. 7, that bill that they weren't able to pass, to look for kind of their goalposts in the conference committee.
Lastly here, how much of a timetable are conferees facing to reach an agreement, and what's expected to happen today?
Well, right now they're looking at a June 30 deadline of when the currently passed and signed extensions would run out for highway programs. Of course, they could always have another 90-day extension, and that certainly wouldn't be unheard of. Today, though, we're just going to get a lot of opening statements, and that will kind of set the flavor from the conferees. There's 47 people on the conference committee, many of them coming from very different ends of the political spectrum, and so they're going to be laying out what their policy goals are for this, and as we discussed earlier, some of them are quite disparate.
Nathan Hurst with Congressional Quarterly. Read more at CQ.com. Thank you for the update.
Anytime, thanks.
And that conference committee meeting begins this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. We will have live coverage on C-SPAN 3. The U.S. Senate should gavel back in about 20 minutes after failing this morning to get the 60 votes needed to move forward with a bill that would keep federal student loan rates at 3.4%. The vote there was 52 to 45. They needed 60 to move the bill forward.
On this vote, the yeas are 228, the nays are 181. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the question on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The question is on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
And it's the last vote in this series, the House having just approved the rule for debate for the fiscal year 2013 spending bill for the Departments of Commerce and Justice and for science programs. There will be an hour of general debate, unlimited amendments, and we expect the next round of votes at about 6 p.m. Eastern. The Senate earlier today failed to move forward, failing to get to 60 votes needed to move forward with the student loan bill, which would keep federal student loan rates at 3.4%. The Senate is expected to come back in at 2:15 Eastern, and that'll be on C-SPAN 2, of course. And later this afternoon, we're covering the committee meeting, the conference committee, over the surface transportation bill. That's coming up at 3. It'll be live on C-SPAN 3, and you can also follow it online at cspan.org.
vote. The yeas are 296, the nays are 108, with 3 voting present. The journal stands approved. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend the remarks and include extraneous material on